January 15th, 1919. Boston. Just after midday, and for the first time in weeks, the sun is out. Dock workers are eating lunch. Children are walking home from school. Then at 12:40 they hear it, a sound like machine gun fire. Metal rivets shearing off one by one, the ground shakes, and around the corner comes a wave, 25 feet tall, moving at 35 miles an hour, faster than anyone can run. But this wave isn't water, it's molasses. 26 million pounds of it. In the next 60 seconds, it will crush buildings, snap a steel railway in half, and swallow an entire city block. 21 people will never come home. This is the story of the strangest disaster in American history, and the corporate greed that caused it. The Calamity Files. To understand how a wave of syrup can kill, you have to go back 4 years. To 1915 and a company called Purity Distilling. Purity was a subsidiary of United States Industrial Alcohol, and molasses was their gold. Fermented and distilled, it became industrial alcohol. And in 1915, with the First World War raging in Europe, industrial alcohol meant one thing above all: munitions. Demand was exploding, Purity needed storage, and they needed it fast. So on the Boston waterfront, in the middle of a crowded immigrant neighborhood, they built a monster, a steel tank 50 feet tall and 90 feet across, big enough to hold 2.3 million gallons. And here's where the story turns dark. The tank was designed not by an engineer, but by the company's treasurer, a man who couldn't read a blueprint. The steel walls were roughly half as thick as they should have been. The tank was never once filled with water to test it. There was a war on, and there was money to be made. From the very first day, the tank leaked. It groaned. Locals said it rumbled like thunder when it was full. Children from the neighborhood came with tin cans to collect the molasses seeping through the seams, and the company's response. They didn't reinforce the steel. They painted the tank brown, so the leaks would be harder to see. Every complaint, every groan of the steel was written down and filed away. Those files would sit untouched for 6 years. And when they finally came to light in a courtroom, they would destroy the company's entire story. But we'll get there. Now fast forward to January 1919. The war is over, but Purity is busier than ever because there's a deadline coming. In one day, the very next day, the United States will ratify prohibition, the nationwide ban on alcohol. Distillers are racing to convert every last drop of molasses into rum before the window closes forever. 2 days earlier, a ship from Puerto Rico topped the tank off with a fresh delivery of warm molasses. The tank now holds more than it almost ever has, and the weather is doing something dangerous. In just 3 days, Boston has jumped from 2 degrees Fahrenheit to over 40. Inside the tank, the fresh, warm molasses is fermenting, releasing gas, building pressure against those thin steel walls. In a house in the tank's shadow, a man named Martin Clougherty is asleep. He'd earned it. He ran a saloon, the Pen and Pencil Club, and had worked the night before. Around the neighborhood, he was known as an amateur boxer and a referee. But that afternoon, Martin had bigger things on his mind than the ring. After years behind the bar, he had finally saved almost $4,000, enough to move his family out of the North End, out of the grime, the noise of the elevated train, the shadow of that leaking tank. He had an appointment that very afternoon at 1:30 to begin making it happen. His sister Teresa had been told to wake him at 12:30. Downstairs, their mother Bridget had lunch waiting. Martin Clougherty was one meeting away from getting his family out. He had 10 minutes left. 50 feet of steel holding back 13,000 tons with the structural integrity of a soda can. At 12:40 in the afternoon, the rivets let go. The tank doesn't just leak, it detonates. The walls split apart and 2.3 million gallons escape at once. Steel panels the size of walls are thrown across the street. One section shears the leg off the elevated railway line on Atlantic Avenue, and the tracks buckle just as a train approaches. The driver sees the rails sag and slams the brakes. The passengers survive by seconds. The wave itself is unlike anything in nature, 25 feet at its crest. And here's the cruel physics of molasses. It moves fast when it's a massive wave under pressure, 35 miles an hour. But the moment it catches you, it behaves like quicksand. The harder you struggle, the deeper it pulls you in. Martin Clougherty never makes his meeting. Teresa had woken him just as she was supposed to, but 10 minutes is not much time, and he is still groggy, sitting on the edge of his bed, when the wave rips the house clean off its foundation and hurls it against the elevated railway. One moment he is in his own bedroom, the next he is underwater. "It didn't dawn on me that it was molasses," he later said. "I thought I was overboard." He surfaces, chokes, and grabs the only solid thing in the churning brown, his own bed frame floating loose. Clinging to it, he pulls his sister Teresa out of the flood alive. Their mother Bridget, who had lunch waiting downstairs, does not survive. Neither, in the end, will his brother Stephen. In the space of a minute, the family Martin was about to save is halved. At the fire station on the waterfront, engine 31, the wave lifts the entire building and slams it toward the harbor. The firefighters inside are trapped in a collapsing ground floor as molasses rises around them. Horses, more than a dozen of them, are caught mid-step and cemented in place. Wagons, freight, whole sheds simply vanish. Where a busy waterfront stood 60 seconds ago, there's now a lake of brown, waist-deep and silent. The first rescuers arrive within minutes. Over 100 sailors from the USS Nantucket, a training ship docked nearby. What they find defies description. People embedded in molasses like insects in amber, some visible only by a hand or a patch of clothing above the surface. Rescue is agonizing. Every step takes strength. Pulling a survivor free takes 4 men. Nurses who wade in have their uniforms sucked from their bodies. The molasses is beginning to cool and stiffen, which means every minute it becomes more like concrete. 21 people die, 150 are injured. Some of the missing aren't found for months. The cleanup takes weeks, fireboats pumping salt water day and night, and Boston Harbor runs brown until summer. Almost immediately, United States Industrial Alcohol tells the world what happened. Sabotage. Anarchists, they claim, bombed the tank. It's 1919. America is terrified of anarchist attacks, and the story is convenient. Blame a bomb and nobody asks about the steel, but the victims' families sue. 119 claims merged into one of the first class action-style cases against a major corporation in U.S. history. The hearings last 6 years, thousands of witnesses. And in 1925, the court-appointed auditor delivers his verdict. There was no bomb. The tank was simply built wrong, too thin, untested, unsupervised. And remember those complaints the company filed away? They became the evidence that hanged them. Purity had known about the leaks for years, documented everyone, and done nothing but reach for a bucket of brown paint. USIA pays out around $628,000, millions in today's money. But the real verdict is bigger than the check, because the molasses flood changes the rules. Boston, and soon cities across America, begin requiring that engineers actually sign and certify their plans, that major structures be inspected and approved before they're built. The building permit system we take for granted today. Part of its origin story is a wave of syrup. Today, the tank site is a small public park. A single modest plaque marks the spot. But North End locals swore for decades afterward that on hot summer days, the neighborhood still smelled faintly of molasses. And Martin Clougherty? He got his wish in the cruelest possible way. After the Pen and Pencil Club closed, on the day Prohibition took hold, He left the North End at last and spent the 1920s running a hotel up in Revere, north of the city. Exactly where he had dreamed of taking his family. He just made the move without half of them. History records almost nothing else about him. He survived the strangest disaster in America, and then, quietly, disappeared into an ordinary life. 21 lives, one corporate lie, and a disaster so strange that history almost filed it under folklore. The Calamity Files are just getting started. On this channel, we open a new one every week. Shipwrecks, collapses, firestorms, and the human decisions behind them. Subscribe and I'll see you at the next file.